Well, thank you all. You've been a wonderful audience and you've asked great questions. You've made us feel very welcome. And I forgot to tell you the number one rule of the road when we do this is I'm terrible at telling jokes. I usually forget the last line. So if I start a joke, just say, please don't. It's too painful. So, you know, the rule is you have to laugh at my jokes whether they're funny or not. That's the law. You will be arrested, handcuffed if you don't. It's just important because otherwise I'll feel really bad and they'll have to lock me up somewhere or something. Hey, I want to read something. You know, I just turned 60, so this is funny to me now. It may be funny to you too. If it's not, you have to laugh anyhow. Remember, that's the rule. Little thing I read, it said, two elderly gentlemen from a retirement center were sitting on a bench under a tree when one turned to the other and said, Slim, I'm 83 years old now. I'm just full of aches and pains. I know you're about my age. How do you feel? Slim says, I feel just like a newborn baby. He said, really? Like a newborn baby? He says, yep. No hair, no teeth, and I think I just wet my pants. Yeah. Don't you make fun of aging because you're on your way. Every day you're headed that way. You may not have any other goals in your life, but whether you want to or not, you are aging every day. I get so embarrassed sometimes. I don't have road rage, but I have road muttering. Which it means if you're in my car and somebody doesn't know how to drive, I mutter out loud. You know, did you get your license on a bubblegum machine? You know. Do you know you're in the left lane and you're only going 49 and a 55? I tell them these things. If I had a microphone and a speaker, I'd have enemies all over the world. And you know, it drives me crazy when people they don't know how to drive. And I love to drive, and I drive kind of like automatic. It just kind of goes easy. And so I'm a mutterer. I don't cuss. I don't run people off the road. But I do mutter all the time when people don't know how to drive. And every once in a while, I'm muttering. And then I pull around the person. I don't stare at them bad. I do look, you know. I don't go, you know, none of that stuff. I really don't want to get in a fight. But I always glance. And so often I'll glance, and it's an elderly lady. Can't hardly see over the steering wheel. Then what do? I repent for 10 miles. Because I know I'm going to be that lady one of these days. And somebody's going to pull around me, and they're going to be as nice as I am. But so I repent almost daily because I've been in my car muttering at someone that's elderly. Hey, this is fun, and I hope you're having a good time. I'm having a good time. I got so carried away, we almost missed dinner. And if you do, you think about questions, write them down. Please do so, and we might do some of that. We did some in the men, and I think you all did too. And we just want to do whatever we can. Sometimes we can kind of get close to home and help you where you are if you have some things you want to deal with. There's all kinds of things. It's and this might even be a good question, is how do we deal with your kids and my kids? Something like that. Somebody might want to ask that after a while, because that's a tough deal. When you have you've been married and you have children in each marriage, now you come together. How do we do this? This is not an easy thing. It's a tough thing. Yeah, you talk about making deals and finding your place, but there's a lot of things that you deal with daily. Don't be afraid to ask, and we'll do our best. And if I can't answer it, I'll just say I can't answer it, and that's not unusual either. You know, the older you get, the more you learn what you don't know. It's just the truth. And you think you should know a lot, but then you go, wow, there's all this stuff I don't know. I just want to say to you all for making this happen. I know you worked hard at some of the arrangements, and you might have had some help doing it also, but thank you all for making this happen. It's a big deal to put this stuff together. Yes. And sometimes we just kind of think it happened. Make certain you find couples that make this happen. And I think it was you all doing this. Do you have somebody helping you here too? I'm not sure.
She left. Yes.
She left, okay. But whoever's helping make all this happen, thank you very, very much. And make sure you thank them personally. Go to them and say, hey, because it is a big deal. Because you go home and you go back and have fun, and they're still here cleaning up. unless you want to stay and help clean up.
They always do.
They always do.
Yeah.
There you go. See, I'm in the right place. I'm just so grateful to be here. The pastor asked us to come, and I said yes on the spot, just like that. He said, "Well, are you sure?" I said, "Yeah, it's y'all. We're here. You know, it's just we'll be there." And that's how I feel about Peoria, and the Lashley family, and I love the Lashleys, and I love the bishop and his wife. They've been friends of ours since we were quite young, and there's sometimes you have people in your lives that make a real difference just because they say one thing, or they do one thing, or they reach out one way. And Brother Lashley Sr. reached out for me when I was a young minister, and it really makes a big difference, and I really appreciate it. And then since then we've been able to be together on several committees and things, and we're two peas in a pod in some ways. We're dangerous, actually. We're let's go to the last lesson, nurturing intimacy in marriage. Let's deal with this a little bit. You all got another hour in you? You ready? Yeah. You need to do calisthenics? You just anybody? No, we better not. We just ate. I thought we were doing them a while ago. She had us doing this, and I said, "Man, I'm about to break into a sweat here." You know. Have you hugged your wife since we first had her? Have you hugged your husband or anything lately? Go ahead and put your arm around him. Love him. You can kiss him if you want. It's okay too. Just whatever. You see, first of all, what is intimacy? We get confused about this word. We think that intimacy is sex. Now, intimacy can lead to sex, and it can be sex, but intimacy is not just sex. What is intimacy? Intimacy occurs when the bodies and the spirits of a man and a woman are harmoniously joined together as one. When we connect as one. That's why those little hugs you're giving, you're connecting as one. It's walking in the park. I told the fellows that one of my great goals in life is we grow old together, and someday I love seeing an old couple, old. I don't know where I am. It's a relative thing. But I love seeing them walking through the park holding hands. And in their 70s and 80s, and they're going along holding hands, or sitting on a park bench holding hands. And I don't know, man, I just get so happy seeing that happen. And I want to be there. It doesn't mean I want to be that old that quick, but I know I'm going to be old. I just want that kind of a relationship that you can just sit there and you just coo with one another, and you just love one another, and you just have a lot of memories. And by the way, IRS, the world, whatever, can take away your things, but they can't take away your memories. And so build great memories together. Do unique things, you know. Don't just do what everybody does. Do things that, I mean, there's some things we've done that we're not going to tell you. Not going to tell anybody. It's a secret. It's just us. But it means something to us. Right. And so we did that with our kids. I could have a lot more money in the bank right now if I had to build a lot of memories for our children. But it was very important. It was important financially that we did that. We bought a high-top van one time. Worst purchase in the world. It was beautiful. It was fabulous. And yet it was the best thing I'd ever done. Why? It cost a lot of money, but it built so many memories with our kids. And then when the friends of the basketball team or whatever was going somewhere, guess what? They were with us, okay? Instead of them being with someone else that who knows who they are. So you build those memories. But the truth is that you want to build memories, and then at the end of life, you want to have that closeness. You want to have that closeness. I think one of the prime moments of my life, and I've had a lot of wonderful times, and I've pastored the same place over 35 years now, and was associate for 6 more. And one of the neatest things that happened, a man in our church was passing on, and he'd been sick a while. They put a hospital bed kind of in this little house in the living area so that all parts of the house they could see him. And so the bed cranked up, and he's kind of sitting in a reclined kind of position. And he had several daughters and his wife, and they called and said he's going to pass here real soon. So I was able to get to the house, and I got to the house and walked in, And the daughters were on each side of him holding his hand and telling him how much they loved him, and he was barely conscious, and they were talking, and then one was at the end rubbing his feet, and the mother, who was just a strong but a wonderful woman, loved this man. She just kind of walked around, and she was the matriarch, kind of took care of things, and finally I was behind all of them, and in a few minutes he took his last breath and passed on. And when he took his last breath and passed away, the girls cried a little, and one of the girls was rubbing the feet, moved over to the side and hugged the other girl. And this mother, I think she was 83 years old, she walked to the foot of the bed like it was the podium. Yep. And she looked at him, and then she called me out. I'm behind them. She says, "Brother Mitchell, pastor." And she wanted to direct this to me. I said, "Yes." She said, "That is a wonderful man right there." She says, "I love that man." She says, "We've been married for, I think it was 62 years. And then she said, "We made a deal when we got married. We made a deal that neither one of us would spend more than $50 without the other ones knowing about it and their permission." And says, "We kept our deal." That's all she said. And it was the most profound thing I'd ever heard. It was so simple. Yeah. And it was so profound. She said, 62 years ago, we cut a deal. Yeah. We made a decision. We're going to do something together, and we're going to make a contract together. And he's kept his part of the deal. I kept my part of the deal. He has died, and I'm madly in love with this man. This is a wonderful man. And I wish I could have recorded it. I didn't know it was going to happen, It was one of the most profound moments of my life. Of course, the second thing I thought of, 62 years ago, $50 was like $1,000 today. Man, that's a lot of money back then. That was my second thought. But I just got to tell you got to find a way to make it happen together. Right. And you got to keep working at it. Right. When I was an associate pastor, I didn't know it until I left Illinois and moved to Indiana to pastor. I did not know how good of an associate I was. I had no idea. I was just working hard every day. And my pastor was he was my mentor. He was my uncle. He was so much to me, I could talk about it all day. And yet we were daylight and dark. He was a wild man. Blood to the bridles all the time, but buddy, he got stuff done. And I was always picking up, disasters and things, and I loved him. But I knew when he was in the podium when he forgot his handkerchief and he was sweating. And I knew when the sound was making him uncomfortable. And as an associate, I made everything happen so that he could do his best, because if he's doing his best, the church is doing their best. Right. And that's a key, by the way. Leaders, if your pastor, he can't do his best unless you're behind him saying, "Help me help you do your best." Right. And what do you need today? Can I do something? Is the air conditioning right? How about the baby? How about the people coming in? What's going on? Help me make you your best. Yep. Every leader I've worked under, even the district superintendents in our state, when he came on the board and I was on the district board, I'd look at him, I'd say, "I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to make you look good. I'm going to make you good, and whatever you need, I'm behind you all the way. You tell me what you need me to do, and I will walk on fire to make sure you do well, because if you do well, the district's doing well." And that was always and so as an associate, I didn't know how good I was till I left. And he gave 5 guys the job I had and 5 ladies the job she had. And then we felt really good. I wanted 5 paychecks. We never got that. What was I talking about? I was talking about something. I don't know.
Working together,
making it happen, I guess. Anyhow, the fact is that whatever you're doing, you can make each other the best husband, the best wife, but you got to work at it. Right. I studied him like the back of my hand. You know what we ought to do? Instead of just looking at every way we're different and going, it irritates me. We should look at each other and go, "Okay, I'm going to learn that person. I'm going to know that person better than her mama knew her or his papa knew him. I'm going to study them until I know her and I can communicate now in church." Now, please don't feel bad and think bad of me right now, but we actually can flirt in church once in a while. And nobody knows it. They have no clue. Because it's just the Danish eyebrow, raise my eyebrow, and she just smiles. She knows what that means. And I mean, we could be 100 feet apart, and I can flirt with her. Why? Because we don't have to say words now. We do. We have to. But when we're far apart, we don't have to say words. The reason is that I know her. You know, I know now better what really makes her happy and what makes her smile. And what we do is we seem to push the buttons of those things that make them upset, like we have power over them, instead of looking for the good thing. Study your spouse. More than you study anything else, study your spouse. You ought to know your spouse better than you know how to play golf.
Yep.
You ought to know your spouse better than you know the best fishing hole, and you should go, no, I know how to be a good husband better than I know how to be a good fisherman. Whatever you do, fellas, study your wives. Wives, know your husbands.
Right.
Study them. Don't, I want to make them into something. You ain't going to make them into anything.
No.
You can respect people into wanting to be things, but you cannot demand for them to be, and they will be. And I mean, so many young ladies, I'm going to get married. Well, I know he has this problem, but with my love, I can love him into it. You foolish young lady. You know, and he's going to, well, I'm the boss. I'll set the thing and we'll all do it. Yep, how'd that work, you know? It just doesn't work. But, and that's what's weird, we are becoming alike. You see how I'm talking right now? This is not me. I'm the melancholy. I like the woods. I like the outdoors. I like to be a hermit. I like to be alone. This is enough people for me to have a party. The rest of you intimidate me, you know. And, you know, I pastor 500 people, and I'm like, well, every day I'm talking to hundreds and hundreds and sometimes thousands of people. And it's just not even me. Me is that other person. But I'm around her, you know. And I get around her, and now she's taught me how it's okay to open up. I know you're afraid to, but it's okay. Because I was always afraid to open up. I'm not the guy that likes to open up. Today, it's dangerous to ask me something personal because I'll probably tell you and you will be embarrassed. It used to be you don't even get close. If I knew you were going to ask, I would escape. I'd run. You wouldn't find me because, anyhow, I was talking about intimacy, but, you know, we just kind of went there. It occurs when we're together. It's the spirit thing. We got to be one in spirit, one in marriage. Intimacy is the byproduct of two hearts that choose to become one. And it's quite important. How do two hearts become one? Let's look at some really keys to developing intimacy, as well as some hindrances that can block the development of this important oneness. So there's some things that will help in intimacy. There's some things that will destroy intimacy. Let's talk about those. Y'all ready? You ready in the back there? Everybody awake? All right. Stay awake. Say amen once in a while, or oh me, or just laugh. I don't care. Even if it's not funny, laugh anyhow. First key to intimacy is respect. And when I hear a young lady say, well, I'm so in love, my heart's, I'm so in love, and I've known him 7 days and I really love him. No, you don't. Your heart's going pitter-pat. But to really love someone, you have to be able to respect them.
Right.
And one of the most important parts, mostly for your children, teach them that the most important part of love when you're finding a mate is the respect part of love.
Yeah.
Because respect is very important in intimacy. If you do not treat each other with respect, you will lose your intimacy in your marriage. If you disrespect your spouse, you will lose your intimacy in marriage. If every time you get with your side of the family, you put her down, or you put him down, you will lose the intimacy in your family. He will laugh and go along with it just because. He doesn't want to make a mess. But he will never forget it. And you may think it was funny at the moment, but it's not funny. She will hurt a very long time. By the way, we should protect one another.
Right. Absolutely.
Even if it's from our own parents.
Yes.
Yeah. You always protect your spouse.
Right.
I don't care if you think your parents are right. Your wife's always right.
Yeah.
I don't care if you think his parents are right. Your husband's always right.
Right.
Why? Because you're going to live with them the rest of your life. And sometimes we think, well, you know, I'm going to raise my kids and da-da-da-da. Sorry. Your kids are going to leave at 18. They're going to be gone. And you're going to have matching recliners. And you don't even like each other.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. We had it happen literally.
Yeah.
The last girl got married, and they'd been like a week later,
Yeah.
and this knock comes on my door on a Saturday morning early, and people never knock on my door. They're hardly ever in the church, ever. But this guy, it is this big guy, wonderful guy. He's standing out there bawling like a baby. And she comes and gets me, and I go to the door, and I said, what's happening? And he just looked at me, tears flowing down his face. A wonderful man. He says, Brother Mitchell, I don't know what to do. I said, well, what happened? He says, well, you know, our daughter just got married. Yeah. And he says, I just realized, he said, we're sitting there in matching recliners and we don't even like each other. He said, we've been together for the kids all these years. He said, what are we going to do? I says, I think we're going to fall in love, you know. I think it might be time that you start falling in love with the person you've been sleeping with all these years.
Exactly.
Something has to be sinful about sleeping with someone you don't like. And I can tell you today they're
Oh,
retired
it's amazing.
and they are more in love than they've ever been.
Yeah.
They had to recreate something that they
Right.
had never created.
Right.
All they did is put each other down to the kids.
Right,
That's all they did. And I'm just going to tell you, both kids need counseling today.
right.
They still are getting it because of the damage that parents did putting each other down all those
Right.
times.
Exactly.
And now the parents are in love and the kids having to get help. You know, they're in therapy. But they made great and it's awesome. So it's just wrong to be sleeping with somebody you don't like. And secondly, it's wrong to retire and have matching recliners and not like the person that you're living with.
Yeah.
So go on dates. Have a date.
Right.
I'm not talking about something fruity now. I'm talking about we stop dating after marriage and we wonder why there's not intimacy. In your budget, you ought to have a little line item that says marriage, dating.
Right.
You say, well, I can't afford to go out and spend $50 for a dinner. You don't have to. Go buy one picnic basket.
Right.
Make a lunch and take it to the park, spread the blanket out, and sit down and have a wonderful time.
Right.
You're making memories.
Right.
Now, once in a while, if you can, you ought to save up for that big one and have a big, just blow the budget once every year or so. No, a couple times a year. But you don't have to do that all the time. But every once in a while, you got to make a statement. But it's important. If you're going to have that, respect is important. And we should remember that we should give each other respect.
Right.
When you talk about your wife to someone else, does respect flow out of your mouth? I told the pastor and his wife, I told him a while ago, I did a retreat for someone one time, the last minute, because he had double booked. And I go to this place, and I'm teaching the first lesson. I'm going, oh man, I don't belong here. I could just tell. It's just like, I don't know what they're wanting, but they're not wanting this. They're this, it's them too honest, too straight, too maybe having too much fun. I don't know. So I finished the session, and I'm just thinking, I got a day and a half. What am I going to do? And so I'm getting ready for the next session, and the ladies stayed inside. The men went out on the balcony and stood over this lake. I start walking through the ladies afterwards, and I listen to their conversation as I'm going through. And you know what they were doing? They were telling big, dumb men jokes. It was all about these dumb men, the dumb men here. And I'm walking going, are you kidding me? I went out to the balcony. Guess what the women were doing? Or what the men were doing? They were telling dumb women jokes.
Right.
And no wonder I didn't belong there. Because I think that's the dumbest thing you can do is talk about dumb women and dumb men. Our differences are our differences, and God made it. Don't call him dumb.
Right. Exactly. Amen.
Okay? God made it that way. He made us to be kind of like this, and He made them to be like this, and it's all wonderful. And so we shouldn't look at and despise our mate because they're not just like us. We should thank God, because how would you like to be married to me? Think how terrible that would be, fellas. Or to you.
Come on.
I mean, we'd bore ourselves to tears. So respect is important. We got to respect one another. When you talk to your kids, how do you talk about your husband, your wife? One day I was in the far end of the house. My children were like Mutt and Jeff. They're 4 years apart, my two boys. One was probably 9, 10. The other one was 4 years younger, 6, something like that. So they had gone into the kitchen, and she's doing dishes, cooking, doing something in there, and I can hear them, but I don't know what the conversation is. And I hear her say, no. And then they say, yeah, but mom, da-da-da. Now, my kids, they know how to debate. And I'm telling you, they debated early. I mean, they were asking questions. It's like, God, what have you done to me? But so they went another way. Oh, okay, and mom, she said, no. And then they did it again, and then she says, no. And, every time when the voice is a little louder and it goes from no, it's musical. But it gets louder and louder and louder, and you can hear no, and no. And and I could feel the tension in here. And they're just, come on, mom, come on. And then she's saying, I said no. And I could tell she's about had enough. And and they said something I thought was just, the way they were handling her was disrespectful. Now, I walk softly. My father was 6'5", big dude. We lived in this shack in Home Missions that when you walked across the house, you almost had to hang on or you'd fall out of bed because the bottom was ate up by termites, and it was a dirt hole in the ground. And we were always afraid one day I'd wake up in the basement, in this dirt basement, because this thing was so bad. So when he walked across, the whole thundered. So for some reason, I start walking and I walk soft. This day, when I heard them disrespecting her, I got up from where I was and I took off down the hall, and I had wood floors, and I'm on purpose, and they know it was on purpose. I am stomping. I mean, I'm hitting the floor loud, coming down the hall, and this house is about 90 feet and all the way. And when I finally got to the end of the hall, I turned right and there's the kitchen. And I'm not saying anything, but I am stomping all the way down the hall. And when I turned and looked at them, she was already leaned against the sink. They could hear me coming. She's leaned against the sink, and they're standing right in front of her, Mutt and Jeff, with their eyes like this because they knew Dad was coming, and they could tell I wasn't a happy camper. I turned that corner, and I looked at those little boys, and I says, "Do you want a piece of me?" And they went, "No." I said, "You are disrespecting my girlfriend. You will not disrespect her. She's my wife. I love her, and I'll love her when you're 18 and you walk out that door. Her and I is going to be in love, and you will never disrespect her in this house. Do you understand that? Do you really want a piece of me today?" "No, Dad, we don't want a piece of you." "Then next time you talk to her with respect. Do you understand that?" "Yes, Dad." "Okay, that's what I wanted to do." I went back and read my book. I wasn't mad, but I wanted them to think I was. And you know what? They stopped that nonsense. You know why?
I don't think it ever happened again.
No. They wasn't going to disrespect her. Because in that house, she's the queen. And if you want to be king, you treat her like a queen.
Right.
And if you want to be a queen, you treat him like a king. And make your kids respect one another. When you finish dinner, if she did the cooking, don't let them up out of that chair until they say, "Mother, that was wonderful. Thank you, Mom, for the food."
Come on.
Hello.
All right. Yeah.
You know what it's called? Respect. "Dad, you still working that dumb job?" "Oh yeah, your dad's still working that dumb job." Disrespect. "Dad, thank you for buying these shoes for me. Thank you for working hard. And you, Mama, are the one that makes that happen. You're the one that lined the kids up and said, 'The Lord gave you this man. He loves God, and he loves me, and he loves you. And you should thank him every time he does something like this for you, because he works hard every day.'" What's that called? Respect. Amen? Would you like to stop right now and look at each other and give each other some respect? You don't have to be anything huge. It can be, you make the best apple pie in the world. But whatever. Can you think of something right now that you can give your partner a little bit of respect and say, "I love you because you..." Y'all ready? Okay, I'm going to make some noise. Go ahead and turn to each other and say, Okay, the second one, let's all read what the second one is. What's it say?
Trust.
I want to tell you something that you may have heard and you may not have, but understand it from this day forward. Trust is a choice.
Yep.
When someone says, "I cannot trust them," that is a lie.
Yep.
You could, but you choose not to.
Right.
You say, "Well, they've done this and that. I can't trust them anymore." You could. If something's happened in your marriage and the elasticity of your love has waned because someone has told a confidence, someone has done something that's hurt you bad, maybe you're offended. I got a couple right now that the man is so offended, but he's a very sensitive young man and has been married that long. But she did something and she did not know what she said was going to offend him, but it has offended him so badly that he can't talk. He's froze.
Yep.
He's froze with his offense. I want to tell you, right behind the wall of unforgiveness is hope.
Yep.
That's awesome.
And if you want to have hope, you're going to have to say, "I forgive." And you're going to have to forgive. There are no two more powerful phrases in our language than "I'm sorry" and "I forgive." There is no phrase you could say that can create more dynamic results
Right.
than I'm sorry or I forgive.
Right.
Trust is a choice. And if your spouse has done something that causes you to mistrust, I'm telling you, you'll never have a wonderful, intimate relationship. And I'm talking about a different kind of intimacy. This is above sex. It's a part of it, but it's above it. You'll never have that close relationship until you can learn that the elasticity of trust comes back again. And I choose to trust.
Right.
You know what happens when you choose to trust? You say, okay, I have forgiven in the past. And I am big enough right now and strong enough. By the help of God, I've washed that out of my spirit. I don't hold it against them anymore. I have forgiven them and I've repented of my bitterness toward it. And I'm going to let it go. I have forgiven them, and so much so that now I can trust again. You say, well, what if they do it again? Can you stop it? Will mistrust keep it from happening?
Right.
You know it won't. In fact, mistrust,
Right.
you might push them over the edge.
Exactly.
Think this through. It's easy. It's practical. Mistrust, you might push them over the edge. Trust, you might just draw them right back in.
Right.
You choose to trust. If I don't trust her, it's because I chose not. It's not because she did something that I didn't approve of.
Right.
It's because I chose not to trust. When you don't trust, you choose it. You can't have this great, wonderful, spiritually intimate relationship without trust. And so here we go. You say, if you're going out, you feel like right now you're gritting your teeth and your blood pressure's going up and your ears are turning red because you have bitterness and things I'm reminding you of what they did years ago and it hurts so bad. I'm telling you, I'm sorry, I forgive, and then go to the Lord and say, Lord, make me strong enough that I can be vulnerable again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because this,
Yes.
she's vulnerable, isn't she?
Yeah.
See, I could have snapped her neck.
Yeah. Yeah.
She wasn't worried about it. Did you see it? If she was worried, if you ever tried to reach out and pet a dog that's been beat,
Yeah.
and you go like this and they go,
Yeah, recoil.
yeah, oh, it's just crazy. What happens when we don't trust one another? We step back.
Right.
Trust means, okay, whew, that really hurt. My pastor, my mentor, one of the things he taught me as a melancholy who didn't trust anybody, raised in a glass house in a preacher's home, and I just, I'd heard it all, seen it all, and it's just tough. So I didn't want to take chances. And he used to say to me, what's the worst that can happen? Over and over and over. This melancholy, what's the worst that can happen? And I wouldn't take chances because I was afraid of being rejected. I had personal issues. I had insecurities. I was afraid. I didn't really think that strongly of myself. I had low self-esteem. And he pounded in me. He was like a general, like the MacArthur. March across the river and blood to the bridles. We're going to get there. And that was him. And here I am, he said, what's the worst that could happen? Over and over. What's the worst that can happen? And I say this to you. What is the worst that can happen if you trust again?
Right.
Oh, well, they might do that again. You don't think they'll do that again if you don't trust?
Right.
If it's in their heart? So here's the difference. If you can trust, you can have a happy relationship
Right.
up to the point where they make a mistake again.
Right.
Now that sounds dumb. Except that if you will learn to trust, you might be able to rebuild this intimacy.
Exactly.
And they will love you so much that they won't want to offend you ever
Right.
again.
Exactly.
But if you don't bring the trust back, they will not care whether you're offended again. Trust is important. It gives you got to have the courage to be vulnerable again. I call it the elasticity has to come back. And I know I'm stuck right here right now. And I am because I feel something in this room, okay? I'm just telling you, I'm still a pastor, okay? And I still sense things. And I know there's probably some of you thought we bugged your house and we bugged your car, and we bugged the pastor's house and all that stuff. I don't know any of you and what's happening with you. I know we teach the same thing. We had a book full of stuff. We do it all over the country, no matter where we go. It's our heart. It's what the Lord has really helped us with. And I do the same thing. But I'm sitting here right now. I feel we have some trust issues. And if somehow we can learn to trust again and say, I cleaned the slate.
Right.
She talked about that in the beginning. You ever seen an Etch-a-Sketch?
Yeah, exactly.
I tried to buy one a while back. I went to store after store to find an Etch-a-Sketch. I couldn't find any. It's all digital now. You know, they don't even make them. I couldn't even find one. I love the Etch-a-Sketch because you can do what you want, and you get done, you go.
Right.
Now everybody pick up your book and look at your spouse, smile, and do the Etch-a-Sketch thing, okay? I erase all the past. Okay, there you go. Oh, now it's feel like children's church. Now here we go. Let's move on. Never sacrifice tomorrow on the altar of today. Romance your mate with tomorrow in mind. I talked about living in the big picture. You'll be glad you did. One of Stephen Covey's well-known 7 habits is to begin with the end in mind. How do you want to retire? Actually, this is gross, but I tell young people that I pastor, I tell them, I says, you know, you're always trying to find that fellow or that girl that's beautiful and good looking and has money and has the hot car and you know they're whatever, for whatever reason you're looking for the wrong thing. I says you ought to marry someone that you someday want to carry the bedpan out for.
Yeah.
It's really romantic, I'm telling you. I'm a Romeo. You know, we're looking at the wrong things because we're never going to be as beautiful in the world's vision as we are then.
Right.
And it's downhill from here.
Right.
It falls downhill from here. And anyhow, it just does. It's life. It just is what it is. And so if you marry for the right reasons, you ought to marry who you want to retire with.
Exactly.
You need to marry, who do you want pushing your wheelchair around?
Exactly.
I met some women that I wouldn't want within 100 miles of me if I'm in a wheelchair. They'd probably just push me and let me go, you know. And so we marry for all these other things that go away soon in marriage. So never sacrifice tomorrow. On the altar of today, create a clear vision of the marriage you want to have in 30 years. Begin with the end in mind. And let's go on. Listen and talk about things that matter. Make your partner your confidant. Share your deepest thoughts, your loftiest dreams to your... But you got to learn to talk. You got to learn to talk. Men, raise your right hands. Fellas, you got to learn to talk to your wife. Put your hands down. I was married a year. Just one day we were having a heart-to-heart, and one of the things, and I admire a lot of things, but one of the things I've always admired about my wife is she really studied me, and she knew what would offend me or what would not make me comfortable, and so she learned how to talk to me. And that she cared so much. I'm about to cry. But that she cared so much about me that she would stop and think about, now, how will this make him feel? Now, understand, she's quick at the trigger, okay? She's the choleric sanguine, just... Right. So for her to do that is harder than for me to do that. But she cared so much for me, and as a sanguine, as one that's quick words, quick do, quick action, she cared so much that she studied me and learned, okay, he will not be offended at this and how I do this. So one day she was very kind, but she looked at me and she says, she says, honey, I don't know what to tell you, but I don't know how to say this, but says, I don't think you trust me. I was devastated. We'd been married a year. And I didn't have this close relationship. My mother died just a couple years after marriage. And my father and I I love him. He's a wonderful man, loves God, but we're not alike at all. And I didn't have that many people I could talk to. And she says, I don't think you trust me. And I looked at her and I said, I don't understand. I says, I trust you more than any person alive in this world. I wanted to say, how can you say that? But I didn't. I was just couldn't breathe. I said, I don't understand. What do you mean? Here you go, fellas. She says, but you don't talk to me. She says, you got stuff that's happened in your life, and I asked you about it. That's what she was saying. You got issues. But she said, you have stuff that's happened in your childhood, in your life, and when I ask you about it, you go, it's no big deal. Nothing. Don't worry about it. Don't want to talk about it. And says, you don't trust me. And then I opened my mouth to defend my honor, and I had nothing to say because she was right. And I just stood there and I didn't know what to say. And I just looked at her and I said, honey, I am so sorry. I had no idea that me not talking to you made you feel like I don't trust you, because I do. I will work on it. Now, I have to tell you, one of the hardest things I had to do in marriage was learn to talk. Because I was raised, he didn't talk. And as I told the fellas, I wouldn't even talk to birds and the bees. I didn't know. Had to figure it all out on my own. We didn't have discussions in my house. We didn't have talks. We didn't have those family times. Everything we did was about building the church. It just really was. It was all about, I knocked on 50 doors every Saturday, went on the bus route and did this and did that, and that's all we knew. We thought that was okay. I didn't know till I was married that really that's good, but we ought to have a family life, I had to learn that on my own. But I didn't talk about things that mattered to her. It meant to her I didn't trust her. So fellas, it's often hard for us to talk. I'm just telling you. It's often hard for the man to talk. And I'm not saying that I will never talk like she does. Okay, I'm not going to be that quick to, okay, let's sit down right now and talk. I'm not that quick. I mean, there's been a few times I was not offended at her, at people that it's like, no, I can't talk right now, but give me 24 hours, I'll pray through, and maybe I can talk, but I'm so mad right now, you don't want me to talk, and I'll talk tomorrow. Sorry, I've been there, done that. But I tried from then on to learn to talk. Now she can't keep me quiet. So keep confidences private, even from your parents.
Oh, yes.
You get married, don't go off and tell things about your husband to your mother and your father. They will never forgive him.
Right. Right.
You love him. They don't.
Right.
I mean, you stole her from them or him or whatever. It's just, they ain't going to get over it. If they had their way, she'd be back in their house. My father-in-law told me that. He said, I was just a convenience. He said, if my daughter, it wasn't, he said, the only reason I'm glad you're in her life is that it makes her happy. Otherwise, I'd just rather her be at home. That's a howdy doody. He meant it too. And the fact of the matter is your parents, they don't be telling all these bad things to your parents. If you need counsel, go to a counselor.
Right.
Talk to someone. But you do that with family and they'll never forget and they'll never forgive. And a year or two later, you've forgotten all about it and they're still, daring to need your mate. Dependent says, I need you. Codependent says, I need you to need me. And you kind of want to pull away and you go, Interdependence says, although I'm strong enough to function without you, I choose to lean on you to allow myself to need you. Intimacy results when two people choose to be interdependent on each other. I teach this to pre-marriage with our young people. I tell them, when you come, and I typify it like this. You have a fellow on this end of the table, and another one at this end of the table, and I'm in the middle, and I look at them and I say, okay, what do you have to bring to this marriage?
Right.
And every once in a while someone says, well, I just love him so much. And I go, that's not enough. Because love can wane. Love can go away. Love can be over with. But that's not enough. Right. You got to bring more than love. How about an education? How about a job? How about I'm good at this? I have this craft I'm good at. How about, this is who I am. You don't get married for love. Here I'm this guy running around teaching about marriage, and I'm the one who's going to tell you, don't get married for love.
Right.
You can fall in love with someone that you are compatible with.
Right.
But you often are not able to be compatible with someone you love.
Right.
And love wanes when compatibility fails.
Right.
So better you marry someone that is not that, doesn't make your heart go, and you can learn to love them because you're compatible, than marry someone that your heart goes, and then, what did we do? So the fact is that you need to learn to be interdependent with each other. What it means is this lady could have built an empire in a company all by herself. She didn't need me to do it. She's smarter than I am. You've already figured that out. If you haven't, you're not as smart as I am. No. She's never made anything but an A in her entire life. I mean, if I made an A, we had a parade down the middle of the city. I mean, it's just amazing. So it's wonderful. Now, I can be I'm going to stop here and give a lesson. I know I'm just sidetracking, but that's okay. I can be intimidated by that.
Come on.
And always try to put her down. Oh, well, you ain't that smart. Ha 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 ha.
Right.
Ha ha ha, you really think you're smart. Ha 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 ha. You know what she's going to do if I do that? She's going to curl up. Then she's going to try to just act dumb because she knows it makes me happy. And then I'm going to be mad because she's acting dumb. Hear me?
Wow.
Or I can just do like I'm doing right now. I say, hey, this is the smartest woman in the world right here. I love her. You know how cool it is to marry someone that's really smart? When you're dyslexic, like I am, and I marry someone really smart. Now, I can really feel intimidating when I'm dyslexic and I get all these words confused and numbers confused and I see things all kinds of ways. And you don't want me to subtract and add for you because I can do it faster than you can on paper, but I do it in my brain. I mean, it just, I had to learn how to do it just to survive school and get into college. I got all these learning disabilities and I married this brilliant woman. All my friends are smart too. I don't have any friends that aren't brilliant.
That's the truth.
Some of my best friends in the world, Brother Lashley's one, your bishop. He's brilliant. You know how smart he is. He's like, whoo, man. I remember one of my first sermons I preached here when I was very young, and he was very kind to me. And I looked over at his notes that he wrote in 4 colors for in between songs. It was better than any of my sermons. My goodness, are you kidding me? You know, one of my other close friends is Simeon Young Sr. He's the editor of the Herald until he just retired, you know. And the other one is Harold Hoffman, which he was like valedictorian, and he has this memory. He reads it and he remembers it. He's preaching like this, and he'll stop and close his eyes and hold his glasses up. And I asked him, I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm reading." Oh, it just irritates me. He said, "God, that's not fair." He stands up to preaching. He's just quoting stuff. He's reading it off a page, verbatim, word for word for word for word. All my friends, Dave Norris, you know, Dr. Dave Norris, we travel together, and he's one of my best friends. He's brilliant. I mean, one of the most brilliant people. So I married smart. My friends are smart, and I'm dyslexic. See, I mean, if you can't be smart, marry smart. Find friends that are smart. You know, just. See, I'm not stupid. Oh man. So she could do this by herself. And you know what? I could do something by myself. Here's the cool thing. We could do well by ourselves. And you tell your children if they're not doing well by themselves, they won't be any good married.
All right.
Well, they're not doing good, but with my love. Oh, baloney with your love, nothing. I've looked at more young ladies that said, "Oh, I know he's just, you know, he's like just a hippie, and he can play music with his armpits and his spoons and all this kind. He does all these cool, cute things he can do. His hair hanging down, and he gets in his car and home, and when I marry him, you know, I can fix all that." And I've looked at more young darlings and said, "Look, for 18 years his mama tried to fix him, and she failed. And if you think you're going 2 and 2, you're badly mistaken. It ain't going to happen."
That's the truth.
So, you know, I look at him and I say, independently, are you doing well? Can he hold a job?
Come on.
I got one wonderful, fine young man that girls every once in a while, he's kind of smooth and all that stuff. And every once in a while, some girl goes after him, and I some of them are pretty sharp girls, and I go, "Ooh, Lord, do you realize the guy can't keep a job?
Right.
He's a wonderful guy, but he works for 30 days, and there was always something wrong with everywhere he goes."
Oh,
Yeah.
always.
And I mean, 6 jobs into it, you go, "Daughter, no. Don't even think about it." I mean, you know, and he's a good guy. He prays in the altar and he does all these things, but he can't hold a job down.
Exactly.
And if you don't want to support your daughter the rest of your life, pray that the Lord would send a knight in shining armor with the Holy Ghost that works a job. So independently, we're good. Okay, I want you to say this to your spouse. Look him in the eye and say, "By myself, I'm good. By myself, I'm good. And by yourself, you're good. By yourself, you're good. But together, we are awesome."
We're awesome.
There we go. Daring to need your mate. Selfishness, there's no room in marriage for selfishness. Amen?
Amen.
No room for selfishness. I could go buy a brand new bass boat, Ranger. I'd like to today. I could bring it home, pull it in the driveway, and you know what? I could do it. And we wouldn't have the big D. I don't want to say the word. You know why? I got a lot of change in my pocket.
Right.
She knows that I would never do that.
Yeah.
I'm never going to put our budget in that kind of a tight mess until her and I sat down. You say, well, my wife would never agree. Well, then you got to do, men, what you are called to do. You know what a man's calling is? Be the greatest salesman in the world. Be patient and keep selling. You might do what I did. I got an old fishing ski. All that means is it's not just a fishing boat, it is a family boat.
Right.
And wouldn't you look wonderful on this family boat? And boy, you would love to be on this boat.
Yes.
And see, you got to make a seat for her. You got these bass seats, that she don't want to sit up on that thing. But anyhow, whatever it is, and I'm not just talking about boats. I have change in my pocket, and she'd go, oh, okay. You know why she would? Because she knows I'd never put us in that kind of trauma financially. Because $50 rule, remember, or whatever your rule is,
Right.
never going to put us in debt without us coming together. And if she says, I don't feel good about it, okay, we'll pray about it. We'll think about it. And then I'm going to be in there one day sitting next to her reading them, arrange your magazine book. Look, did you see this? Look what this thing can do. Oh, there you go. Okay, fine. And just the next time, hey, look at this. And then we're going to go to the lake one day and go, there's one of those. Or we just, I need to go in here and get something for my old boat. Go with me. Let's walk inside. there's that boat. And wives the same way. You just got to learn. You work with each other. You're good separately, but there's no selfishness in the home.
Right.
You never do anything just for you.
It also helps your credit score.
Oh, it really helps your credit score. Impatience. Romance takes time. Everybody say romance takes time.
Romance takes time.
I'm going to skip through it because time's up. Insensitivity. Learn to pick up on your partner's cues.
Yep.
First of all, give cues.
Yeah.
I'm pretty subtle with my cues, okay? So it's the thing I always have to work on. I'm too subtle.
And I don't read I'm obtuse. Right over my head.
And so one of our big challenges in our life
Absolutely.
is that I'm always trying to be very smooth about my cues. And so I think I just gave this wonderful cue, and she missed it totally,
Badly.
I come home that night thinking, tonight's the night. And I walk in and, hey, we got the grandbabies. It's like, a man that's been expecting this all day long and comes home and we got grandbabies is not a good scene. You go out and cut wood. Cut wood. Or take a cold shower, whichever works.
Or pray the grandbabies go to bed reading.
Oh, yes. I'll read their stories tonight for them. Jesus wept. Okay, time to go to sleep. All right, okay, go to sleep. For marriage.
Yeah.
For your marriage, I want to read the most important scripture in the Bible.
Yep.
Look under pride. Let's read it aloud. It says, only by... Let's read it again.
Only by pride cometh contention.
Years ago when I discovered this scripture, I'd read the Bible. My grandpa used to challenge me. We'd read the Bible through every year together. And I'd read it, but I just didn't get it. And one day I'm reading, doing the Bible reading, I hit it, and I go on to the next scripture, and the echo of the last one pops in my head, and I went, only.
What?
Oh, stop this train. I back up and read it again. Only? I go back to the beginning of the chapter, read the whole chapter, read the chapter afterwards. I read this for a year and a half, and I don't want to sound arrogant because I don't mean this way, but I almost had this little debate with God for a year and a half. I kept saying it can't be only. There's got to be times that contention is not because of pride. And I kept studying it. And the more I studied it, the more I realized, oh, wow, as if I'm surprised. God knows what he's saying, I want to tell you the most important scripture for marriage is this right here. Only by pride cometh contention.
Yep.
When you feel the spirit of contention coming together,
Yeah.
there's pride involved. And if you want to get the contention out of your marriage, where should you go? Well, to the altar.
Absolutely.
Wash it out. What should you do next? I am so sorry. Or I forgive.
Yeah.
Only by pride cometh contention. If there's contention in your marriage, when I was a child, what usually come from the podium was, well, if you have a marriage problem, go pray through. You never had counseling. I mean, I want you to right now say to your pastor, I want you to say, thank you for making this happen.
Absolutely.
It cost a lot of money. It cost a lot of time. That a pastor cares so much about your marriage, about your life at home, not just what you do for the church, but your life as a person is an incredible act of unselfishness for a church and for a pastor. And you should thank him over and over again. Thank you for doing this. But it is so important that we understand. We used to hear just all go pray through and your marriage will be okay. Now there's some truth to praying through.
Yep.
The pyramid says the closer I get to God, the closer you get to God, the closer we get to each other.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's a fact. But all your answers will not come in an altar. Sometimes you need to sit down and look at a practical matter in the eye, and you need help, you need counsel.
Absolutely.
And only by pride cometh contention. And if I didn't say anything this whole trip, if that's all I could say, I'd walk in. If I had, you have 2 minutes, okay, this is all you're going to do, I'd stand up and say, only by pride cometh contention. Because anytime you have real contention, it's a product of pride. Judgmentalism, judging your mate by impossible standards. We're one now. You know what happens when we become one?
Absolutely.
If we're not careful, we start taking advantage and taking each other for granted.
Right.
Oh, we're one, you're me and I'm you, so what's the big deal? And we take each other for granted.
Yeah.
And after you're married a little while, what happens to that honeymoon? The only difference in a honeymoon and losing that honeymoon spirit after a year or two is taking each other for granted.
Right.
When you keep special things that are special and you keep those going, you don't take each other for granted.
Right.
And you stay sensitive and you don't want to be judgmental. Never ever. Okay, how many has ever had, yeah, please raise your hand. We're going to be transparent. If you've ever had a little friction on your way to church, like you're late, and you're just, isn't it stupid that we have the hardest problems on our way to church?
Right.
We're going to worship God. And on the way to church, we ain't talking to each other. If you got up a little earlier, if you hadn't done this, and you didn't have to do that, and I told you, and of course then the man helps it all. He goes out in the car and goes, boy, that helps. So by the time they get in the car, they got flames, and it's not Holy Ghost flames. They go to church, and then they sit in the back pew, and they sit down on the pew, and they don't sit next to each other like this. They sit far away, and she puts her purse between them. Don't touch me. And then the Holy Ghost falls, and she gets, oh, glory. He goes, what are you doing? You have no right to worship God.
Yep.
Man, I want to tell you, if you've had a hard time and your husband or your wife starts praising and dancing before the Lord, you ought to get up and dance too, because God Almighty, He even bypassed what she just said and did, or he just said and did, and He loves it. Wow, this is going to be, because you know it's going to work out. It's when they just sit there like this, you ought to be worried.
Right. Come on.
Keeping score doesn't work.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something, fellas. If a wife says, would you take me shopping? Now, to you, that's worth 1,000 points. Maybe 10,000 points. To her, she looks at it as, what's a big deal? I mean, you didn't have to do anything but walk with me. I mean, you didn't have to touch the clothing, You didn't have to all you had to do is walk with me today. Wasn't a big deal. To her, it's worth 100 points.
Yeah.
The sacrifice to you is 1,000. Now, you go away a weekend and you go fishing with a bunch of guys. To her, it's 1,000 points.
Right.
To you, well, you got to be with your parents anyhow.
Right.
It's only 100 points.
Right.
That's why scorekeeping doesn't work.
No, never works.
Because what's really, really important to me, it's worth more points. What's really important. And so if you keep score, your marriage will fail.
Exactly.
You'll never, ever live up to someone that's keeping score.
Right.
We don't buy each other Christmas gifts. We decided this when we first got married. I buy gifts all year long.
Yes.
I don't really care when it is,
He's an
what it
amazing
is.
gift giver.
Yeah, and I love it, I buy her nicest clothes. She buys the normal clothes. I buy the real nice stuff. She won't pay as much as I will. And she's just not going to do it. And so for special occasions, I go shopping. And I go to these stores and I find the stuff I want and I pick it out and I buy it and bring it home. There's some in this room, fellas, you don't want to do that. But I like doing that, so it's a good thing with me. So I love doing that. I love buying gifts. But Christmas, you know why we don't? Because budgets are blown away
Yeah.
because we got to keep up with the other one. They go, you spent $50. I spent $250, and all you got me was that $50 teddy bear.
Right.
You see? Now, I'm not telling you shouldn't buy Christmas gifts for each other. Please don't misunderstand me. That's just our deal.
Right.
You might have a great time. You might have a family kind of tradition that's awesome. If you do, go ahead and buy gifts. I'm just telling you, I think we got to be careful about this scorekeeping.
Right.
Don't keep score, because if you do that, you just become judgmental, and it's not going to work. And then the last thing I want to talk about is unresolved conflicts. They're like treacherous landmines. They're dangerous because they may be buried, perhaps undetected for years, and like landmines, their unsuspected explosions can do critical damage to each partner. Talk about the painful stuff and deal with it.
Right.
So you left, you thought things were fine. You come home, and when you walk in the door, she snaps at you, and you go, what did I do today? And it's not about today.
Yeah.
You were 5 minutes late today, but it reminded her that she had dinner on the table, and you hung out with the fellas, and the dinner got cold. And when you were late, it reminded her of that, and you never said you were sorry. And when you walk in the door 5 minutes, only 5 minutes, you get 4 hours worth of, because it's an unresolved conflict.
Right.
Do not think that time heals all things. That is a lie.
Absolutely.
It'll come up again someday if you don't fix it. If you can't fix it, if you agree that you just come there, and then that's when you say, I need help. Pastor, help me. Or help me find someone to help me, because I need help. We can't seem to get through this. And then that will help you. Why should we strive for intimacy in our marriage? It builds a solid foundation for growth, helps each of you reach your potential.
Right.
It helps you raise wonderful kids. And as she started with today, the most important marriage seminar you will ever go to, or that your children will ever go to, is the one that you give every day of the week.
Right.
The most important marriage seminar that your children will ever attend is the one that you teach every day of the week.
Right.
Because when their default factor will always be, what did mom do? What did dad do?
Yep.
And that's where they would go. So true intimacy is important. Intimacy with a couple is important for their children. They need to know you love each other.
Right.
The most intimidating time for a child is when mom and dad's arguing.
That's right.
And they stick their head under the covers, or they run to the other room and they peek around. You don't see them, but they're peeking around listening, and they're talking together. And you know what they're talking about? Do you think our parents are going to get a divorce? They're worried. They go to school worried because all their friends, their parents are separated. I don't want to say the word. It should never come up in your house. Don't ever say the D word. If you say it, you'll do it. If you keep saying it, it's going to happen. Don't talk about separating. Don't waste your time, your emotions, or your word talking about that stuff. You get that in your emotions, and your emotions will lead you to the river that says it's all over.
That's right.
But if you don't ever talk about it, and all you talk about is repair, 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 restore, 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 love, love, forgive, I'm sorry. Sounds like Christ, doesn't it? Man, if we were Christ-like in our marriage. If you strive for intimacy, it's good for your kids, it's good for you. The other thing is people that are predators, sexual predators.
Right.
I travel a lot, and sometimes I'm checking into a motel by myself. Do you know what I do when I check in? I start talking about my wife. Because most of the time it's a woman standing there. And I want to tell you, a motel is not a good place. Because there's all kinds of dumb stuff goes on by people that work at the hotels. I have people in my church that run hotels, and they tell me stories that it's crazy. And so I go in, and I'm always nice. I'm always, I hate when people go in, them apostolic, one God, tongue-talking holy roller. I want my room, and I want it now. It's like, yeah, I'd like to have your Holy Ghost. You want me to come to your church? Right. And so when I go in, the first thing I ask them, how are you today? And they just go, yeah. Somebody cares how I am today? I do that to waitresses and waiters. Hey, how's your day going? They go, well. And they're all shocked by it. The other side of that, though, is some of them might think I'm flirting with them because I ask, how's your day going today? And so the second thing I say is, oh, my wife and I, we've stayed in your motel a lot. We love your motels. I throw my wife, why? just because you got predators out there. And you want me to show you a picture of her? You know what I mean? Just whatever. But if you start talking about your spouse,
True.
you know. I told the men this, I'm going to tell all of you this. If you have a Facebook account, make sure husband and wife's picture both are on that account. Don't you put your picture out there by yourself.
Right.
And then go, well, they thought I was single, or they thought this, and I know, I don't like Facebook very much, but I know all the things you're supposed to show this, they don't care. But you ought to be on there. It's protection for you, it's protection for them. Protect yourself with this. But understand that we need intimacy in marriage. And well, I'm going to quit. How about that? It's time to quit. And I hope you had a good day. And I know you're getting a little tired, and I probably am too. I just don't know any better. But you've been a great audience. You've laughed at the things that weren't funny, and I appreciate it. And you've always made us welcome here at this church, and we're always glad to be here. Really, really. And I talk a lot, and I talk fast, and I talk loud, and I laugh a lot. But I'm one serious dude when you're talking about marriage. I will fight for marriages. I was the little boy sitting under an old antique buffet in a house that was about to fall into the basement because of the termites. And Mom and Dad are standing, one in the kitchen doorway and one in the bedroom doorway, pointing at each other, fighting. One argument, one loud debate, one fuss, daily. And I remember sitting under that buffet and I said, Lord, if you will help me, first of all, to find the right wife, He did that. I will do everything I can to help everybody have the happiest marriage they can have. That is the only reason I stand with you here today, is that I want to fight for your marriage. It is the reason your pastor says, yes, let's make this happen. He's fighting for your marriage. Because if you don't have revival in the home, you won't have it in the church house.
Right.
And if the devil can separate the two of you, he will separate you from the body.
Right.
You need to be together. If you're going to raise spiritually healthy children, they need to see mom and dad in love, respectful of one another, trusting one another. Let them see that. The greatest strength of my two sons' life is our marriage.
That's right.
I wasn't good at everything. Some things I did bad. We just didn't have all the answers. Parenting is the hardest thing in the world.
Absolutely.
I mean, the babies don't come out with a handbook.
Yeah.
They come out with questions and, what am I going to do? I'm just telling you, God wants you to have a happy marriage, and the devil wants to defeat your marriage. And I'm standing here today and telling you, you can have a intimate, happy, united relationship. Don't give in to the doldrums.
Right.
Don't give in to no romance.
Right.
Don't give in to, well, I don't even like. No. Start dating again. And if you're like the couple that have matching recliners, move them up a little closer.
Yep.
All right.
Hold hands. Do things. You know what the Bible says in Revelation? He said, do your first works.
Right.
And I'm telling you, before we got married, the phone bill was astronomical. We lived far apart. And then after we get married sometimes, don't even have time to talk.
Right.
Okay? Do what you did when you fell in love. Should write a country song that says that. I'm gonna do what I did when I fell in love. I'm gonna be as sweet as a dove.
How to get an award.
We're in a building program. Maybe I should do that. I need to make some money. But whatever you have to do, do it and fall in love again. Find a way to fall in love again. Because you fell in love. You love them. Now fall in love again. Okay, let's, any questions? Either paper or...
Pass them in or, yeah.
Do what?
Yeah.
Pass the
Guys,
If you have any questions you want to pass in, or if you don't, you just want to ask them, that's okay too. Would you collect questions for me? Somebody collect questions.
Yes, we've done these.
Oh, they already. You already
We've done these.
already took care of those. Well, there we go. Anybody have a question about anything that's happened today, or anything that hasn't happened, or something you wish would happen? And
Or child rearing, like you said. Child rearing.
yeah. Any questions? It's kind of like an auction. If you wiggle your ear, I'm going to point to you. No. Amen. I know we've done some of the men, and you have ladies also. So if you don't, that's okay. We don't need to make it up. But if you do have anything you want us to chat about here for just a second, just slip your hand up and ask, and we'll do it. And if not,
Does anyone have questions about your friends' marriages?
oh yes, there you go. I have asked that before for this reason. She's a smart lady. That's how you do it. You say, I knew a couple one time. I went around the country for 30 years probably teaching marriage retreats, and I would tell a story about a young man who was 2 to 3 years old who couldn't stop wetting the bed, and they had the whole family reunion at the house, and the dad got him up one day and said, I've had enough of you wetting the bed, and put a diaper on him and made him run around the whole day in a diaper in front of his uncles and aunts. And I would tell everybody that I knew a young man that happened to, and finally one day I just said, that was me. It was me, and it was. Yeah. Oh, I've got issues, folks. I mean, every psychiatrist needs a psychiatrist. So why wouldn't a fellow that's trying to help people with issues not have issues? I got issues. Yeah. God's good, isn't he? Amen? Amen. All right, let's stand up, and I'm going to turn my head, and you're going to reach out and give her the biggest hug you've ever given her, and I'm going to turn this back to the pastor.
What a wonderful day. Can we give Brother and Sister Mitchell a hand? Sometimes as a pastor, it's kind of hard to tackle these subjects because I know. Yeah. And I'm picking on people. But whenever we realize that, we all have issues, and there's nothing new under the sun. Your issues, other people have. Absolutely. And there is an answer. So many times the enemy wants us to isolate us with the fact that, well, our situation is different. And my wife and I have the perfect marriage.
Because she's perfect.
Thank you.
I got lots of questions. She's got lots of answers. We get along all the time, and then we fight all the time. No, we do have a good relationship. And one of the greatest compliments, it's because we work at it.
Right.
We work at it. I'm going to tell you, there was a coming together, a blending that was, well, it was fun from this perspective on this side. But one of the greatest compliments that I've received about our marriage just happened the other day. It came from my daughter.
Wow.
She's talking to one of her friends, and she said, I hope I still feel about my husband the way my mom and dad feel about each other.
There you go.
I heard that. I thought, my God, we did something right. We got...
It's worth $1 million.
Absolutely, because, I look at our marriage and I see a lot of areas where I could have done things a lot different, a lot better. But just like your kids don't come with instructions, neither does a marriage.
Right.
And they're fluid. Marriages are fluid.
Absolutely.
And that's why it's necessary to have these times to come together. Just because you're here today doesn't mean you're having problems. It means we have problems. And we're going to have problems.
Don't show up all the time. Everywhere I go.
I
It's
know.
the truth. The pastor goes, oh, so-and-so would have been there. I hear it. I don't even know who so-and-so is.
Hey, marriages are fluid. That's why you always have Kleenexes available.
Hey, Sanguine, come over here. We're done. The pastor's trying to talk.
They got it.
But at any rate, we're going to let them go back to their hotel. And he's going to go to Bass Pro. And no, we're going to have a good time. Church tomorrow, we're going to have a great time tomorrow. This evening service will be omitted, so those of you that don't know that yet, maybe your husbands haven't told you, understand that. We're going to come together tomorrow and have a great time. Amen. Take your books home. Guys, you're supposed to read it first, remember? He told the guys, we're the leaders, so we got to make sure we read it. Amen. I love you. I love you with all my heart. I'm for you. I want you to win. And let's do this. God bless you.